Daily Dirt with Dustin Diggs. The Daily Dirt with Dustin Diggs.
All right, welcome to the Daily Dirt with Dustin Diggs. We got a special show today. Worldwide Magazine, and we're going to do a little tribute. It was a groundbreaking show, in my opinion, in the 80s and 90s. It was definitely before its time. Pete Tricey was the mastermind behind it. He's no longer with us, but we're going to kind of tell some great stories. Jim is here. So, Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Also, we got Big Mike and Angelo that were part of the show back in the 80s and 90s. I guess the way to start off for the audience probably doesn't know much about Worldwide Magazine, and I've done a lot of research, and I was telling them before you got here, I have Pete's voice in my head because I've been watching videos for the last day and a half. Give like an elevator pitch to the audience what the show was back in the, we're talking 1987.
Yeah,
well, was it 87?
86.
86.
He shot the first show in 85. It premiered in 86, I believe. Does that sound right, guys?
Sounds about right.
Every day I use up a year's worth of luck.
Yeah.
It was when cable TV was coming into the area.
Right.
And by law, they had to have a public access station to give access to anybody to broadcast what they want.
Right.
So Pete had gotten a camera and put together a little movie, as he called it then. And it was just him for the most part. His girlfriend Denise at the time was in it a little bit. And it kind of went from there. It blew up pretty fast within the first 10, 20 episodes as far as getting a following. It was one of those things where people would be flipping through the channels as you did back then.
And there wasn't very many channels, but it wasn't like oversaturated like it is today. That there's just so much to watch, you don't know where to start.
Right,
kind of deal. Right.
So you stumble upon this, and
you're like, oh, that looks familiar because that's St. Louis right there. Oh, that's yeah.
Not only that, but it's just bizarre, something you haven't seen before. Not used to seeing on TV. Whether he's shooting up his insulin like it's heroin in his cab, or dancing around and pulling his pants down and dancing in his underwear to James Brown.
He was a good dancer too.
Yeah. But it pulled people in, and you hear that familiar refrain throughout the 15-year run that people would just stumble upon this, flipping through the channels.
Yeah.
And Friday, Saturday night, so they'd be with their buddies.
Drunk,
high, and like, oh, crap, what is this? You know, and it would pull them in. So not necessarily like appointment television, but yeah, that Friday, Saturday party, Hoosier party thing, where they just stumble upon it and watch it. And,
so his backstory, he came from New Jersey, from what I read from his bio, and came to St. Louis. So that's why he had the kind of a unique kind of accent. And so he drove a cab at night, and then he bought the camera equipment, and he used to edit on 1/4-inch tape, which is kind of like almost like video film in the sense, like, right? It was pretty thick.
Yeah.
Three-quarter tape.
Three-quarter inch. Three-quarter inch.
So initially he came to St. Louis to work in radio. That was his thing. He went to college for a few years. He didn't graduate, but was an underground disc jockey in the Boston area, and then came to St. Louis, worked as a DJ and a program director for
KDI.
Yeah, KDI. And that was, how long would you say? Maybe 7-8 years total?
Oh, I don't know.
It was like mid-70s to early 80s. And eventually at one point he had been fired enough times by Richard Miller, who was in charge of the station.
Deservedly so, I'm sure.
Yeah. And he wanted a change of pace, so he got into driving cabs. And I think it was out of necessity at first, from what I've read in interviews, but he came to enjoy it for the interactions with people and just the freedom of just driving around. And he incorporated that into the initial episodes. almost like a taxi cab confessions, but not necessarily.
I wanted to quickly say, when he was at Katie, you know, and he was a program director, he had a talent for new songs would come out, and he could tell what was going to be a hit, and then he would put it on Katie, and then, you know, weeks later it'd be on Casey.
Well, I noticed too in some of the videos clips that he would parody a lot of the stuff too, like when it was like on the bus, it was a you know, popular '80s whatever song, and he put his own lyrics to it. How did you guys get involved with kind of bringing you guys into this circle here? How did you guys get involved with?
Well, it was
Pete?
the same thing, like you said. We just flip it
We
through
were
the
fans
channels.
of the show.
Yeah,
You were fans of the show, okay?
And then he had a thing at Tire Grove Park. And so we went to it, and then we met him, and then, you know, we're crazy like he is, and, you know, that's how we got together.
And so he just put you guys on camera?
Well, actually, I was doing a little bit of video stuff, too, and so we were kind of into it. And
Oh, okay.
so it worked out, you know.
How did you, obviously your real name's not Big Mike, but how did that come about with the Big Mike character?
Well, my name is Michael Carlos Villasenor, but he calls me Carlos.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I was Big Mike on the show, and yeah, that's how it is. And then I did a lot of hunting, and so he would use that stuff. And, you know, he was always hungry for video. So anything that I would shoot, he'd be glad to use
that's
it,
what's so interesting about the show was he would just go to different things. He would go to businesses, and he was like talking to Becky Queen of Tile or something.
Wanda.
Yeah. But then he would, you know, stand outside the picket lines of Schweid Engel and kind of, you know, disturb like the mayor and go, you know, it was almost like you paid for it before it was you paid for it, like kind of stuff he would do.
When he was very abrasive. You know, he's always, you know.
It was a disruptive man on the street thing.
Yes.
Talking to young people outside of businesses and, I don't know, asking crude questions at times. But yeah, and that's also how he put himself out there so people would recognize him. They'd see him around and see familiar places when they would see it on TV.
Right. So yeah, he would do that, and then, but I felt when I was watching things, he would say the crude questions, but it didn't seem like he was like mean to the people. It's not like he was pranking the people and inflicting harm on them. He would just ask kind of questions, almost making himself look silly with the questions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Obviously, some of the stuff we were talking earlier, he went to a lesbian picnic at the Grove back in the 80s. And, you know, some of those questions you probably wouldn't want to do nowadays because it's just a little change of culture, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of that stuff that you'll see on the show wouldn't fly now at all.
That's for sure.
Right.
And honestly, I'm sure we don't, I'm surprised we don't get as much pushback when this stuff is posted, but there is a lot of nostalgia here. There's a lot of just like the time capsule aspect of it all, both of the area, the people.
And it was another era. you know.
So
absolutely.
Here's a clip right here. He's in his cab. He saw a car wreck and he just jumped out with his camera. So it seemed like he was, So he would take the tapes. He would edit them. I know he used to. My uncle worked as an engineer for KPLR, and he would tell me stories where he would come in and use the edit bays. I think rent them out at first, and then he ended up working there late overnight or something like that.
Yeah, he did work there.
Yeah. But then he would take the tapes, and you were saying the public access earlier. He would send it to just St. Louis, but I read something. Did he send it to other cities? I mean, was it kind of?
I don't think he went too much outside of the area, but you still had different cable companies to deal with, probably at least 4 or 5.
Oh, yeah.
Traveling around to different counties to get them to put it on. And there was quite a bit of news coverage of the pushback that he would get from these cable companies throughout the years. Whether they would threaten to completely take him off the air or just refuse to air a specific episode.
Was it when you got the archive footage because his wife passed away in 2009? Is that correct? Girlfriend did.
Yep.
And so, how did you know, Pete, that you were like, here, take these tapes, or how did you?
So, when he passed away in 2002, I was in college at Webster University, and I proposed to a professor at that point in time of doing a documentary on Pete Tricey. He wasn't familiar with the guy. He was kind of against it. Didn't sound like a story to him. But once I started putting stuff together, he was on board and he threw out some ideas too. But initially, when I first started doing that, I reached out to what was left of the Worldwide Magazine website, which was very primitive at that point in time.
Right, had to be,
2002.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
But
I was doing the website.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, you did a good job for back in 2002.
Yeah,
so that,
with the resources that I had.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I reached out to the website. It was an AOL email address, and I got a hold of Angelo, and we met up. I got some episodes from him. Digging around, I met the Feeney brothers that were on the show. Got some tapes from them. A lot of the footage that I was gathering was like tapes over tapes, like EP taped footage. So not the greatest quality at all. So the initial stuff that you see on YouTube on my personal channel is of a lower quality. But I was just putting stuff out there as I was digitizing it for my documentary. And at some point I started the Facebook page. So, yeah, people started following that more and more. And I would kind of, working a day job. So sometimes there would be a long lull and then I would just push out a lot more. In 2010, I believe, is when Linda, his girlfriend, passed away. Her daughter was an acquaintance of mine. I didn't know actually that they were related until shortly before that. And she reached out and said that they found some boxes of Pete's tapes. Would I like them? And this was right around the time that COVID hit. So is that 2020?
Yeah, 2020. I know.
I think it was like May 2020, around there. And I was like, sure, yeah.
But before then, I noticed, because you have your page, but I was researching this in 2018, and there was already videos out that other people posted. I guess there's
a handful.
There's
yeah,
a handful, you're right.
Yeah. Mike Sin has a handful out there. I think Steve Bailey put a few out there who was on the show in the early years as well.
So for the audience, so you're talking 15 years. I mean, there's like hours and hours of footage.
Oh yeah.
And so my question I was getting at was, so there's probably stuff on those tapes that was rejected by, I'm sure, by the public access, that you probably had to go back and cut out and things like that. Right?
Not necessarily. Most of it's like the tapes that I have. Most of it are the cut episodes.
Okay.
Now he does have like up to 3 different versions of one episode at times. He'll have like an A, B, and C. Because it seemed like from his notes, which there isn't much, but it seems like he just knew what he could get away with each cable company. So he'd have different cuts for them. They didn't vary a lot, but it goes to show you that he had to make that effort. There is some raw footage, not a lot. And I haven't dug into that stuff too much, because my goal at this point is just to digitize as many of the episodes as possible first, and then kind of go from there. But yeah, so when she got a hold of me, 37 boxes of tapes ended up on my front porch. So It was
quite overwhelming, I'm sure.
Yeah, for my wife too.
Right. Oh my shoot.
So I had to get those boxes down to the basement fast, and it took a long time just to get through all of them. Some of them are in pretty bad shape. Dust. God knows what else was in there, like asbestos maybe.
Right.
Who knows? Nicotine stains.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
If he was a smoker, I could see.
Yeah. There was a lot of water damage, a lot of mold in some of those boxes. So just physically cleaning off the cases, getting them out of those cardboard boxes was quite an endeavor. But then starting to digitize them. That's where Angelo came in and started helping. a lot of the super VHS tapes. He
cleaning them. And
painstakingly took them all apart.
Right.
Had to clean the tape before he even attempted to digitize anything.
So, talk because we got Black Jesus pulled up here. I thought he would. I knew a woman named Mama Daisy Chain that was part of the show.
Yeah.
Sadly she passed away.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, last year.
Wow.
And but she's the one that turned me on to the show. And then she was talking. And then you were talking. Her and him went to where
a cat show.
a cat show.
The Tomcat show
Right.
at the
Some hotel, wasn't it?
yeah
Sheridan.
yeah near the airport.
Yeah.
I don't think it's there anymore. But yeah, she was on a handful of episodes. Sometimes it's just a
right.
side player, but yeah.
Well, talk this side of the table, get you guys in the conversation. So tell me some of the other characters that I probably haven't seen that were kind of famous on the Worldwide magazine. Obviously, your guys'
I
character.
guess there were the first characters were like Big Daddy, who was a professional wrestler and
Nice. Okay.
and a manager, and then Watt Davis, who was a fellow taxi cab, and I guess he had met Pete, I think, at the License Bureau on Kings Highway and Filer. And Pete Watt was watching the show and came up to him and said, "Yeah, I want to be on the show."
That's how most of the people got on the show.
And that's how you guys got. So how would the process work? Would he just call you guys up? Obviously, there's no cell phones back then.
Right.
Hey, I'm going to be here at 12 o'clock. We're going to film this event. You guys want to be part of it? Kind of deal.
And everybody thinks we had these big scripts and everything, but I mean, people
Wing it.
just kind of turn you loose, and whatever
wing
happened,
it.
that's what happened, you know. So there wasn't not too much playing stuff, you know.
Right.
And in one episode, are you familiar with the movie The Last Temptation of Christ?
Yes.
They were having a boycott at the Avalon Theater. So I'm at home, and my buddy calls me up. He goes, they're having a boycott at the Avalon Theater about that movie down there.
Yeah.
And he goes, you got to tell Pete to go down there. And I said, that's a great idea. So I hang up the phone. I call Pete. I said, Pete, they're having Catholics are having a big protest
Right.
at the Avalon Theater. I said, you got to go down there. And then Pete says to me, he says, why would I want to do that? And then I didn't say anything. So there's like a 5-second silence pause. Then he starts laughing. Yeah. I'll call you back.
Right.
And then I guess he called you.
Yeah.
And he did the camera work.
Yeah.
Okay, so you do the cameras sometime. Okay.
Yeah.
I would do the camera work if there was nobody else to do the camera work.
Right.
But
Everyone pitches in.
And you know what was great about that protest was Deanne Lane was there from Channel 5.
Oh, God. Yeah.
And he was talking to her, and so then she started doing her broadcast back to Channel 5. And you're watching it from Pete's camera, and slowly you see this microphone come into the picture. And, you know, people said, now our special correspondent, Deanne Lane, and we'll go to her. And,
Oh, my God.
then he edits, perfect edit to the.
yes.
Oh, to like what was on the station that
Yes.
day? Wow. He was kind of savage in this sense, right? So he had
I would say so, yeah.
he had, how was his personality? Did he,
Oh, my
he
God.
just seemed like he had
That's hard to explain.
huge set of balls. I don't know how else to say it. Yeah, just to go like to, you know.
I guess he's had like the typical Northeast type,
Yeah, New Yorker kind of guy.
New York,
Yeah.
Northeast, abrasive
Yeah.
personality.
I noticed like just like any cute girl that's at any event, he's going to put him on the mic kind of deal, right? Yeah.
and he always, whoever's doing the camera, he'd say,
Right.
get a good picture of her.
And that meant go from her feet up to her head.
Right. So that's a funny story. I wonder if you could find out the clip on with Deanne Lane or whatever with the mic coming.
Yeah.
on.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
Oh,
hilarious.
that's a good one.
Yeah, the full episode's out there, and there's a clip as well. If you probably look up Worldwide Magazine Last Temptation,
Okay.
you find it.
Oh.
But yeah, there's tons of people marching back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
What is his name?
This is it. Right here.
That had the other public access show at the time, he was there.
Andre.
Andre.
Thank you. Andre's Pit. Yeah. And Jeff, who started Venice Cafe, was dressed as Jesus. He's in the clip somewhere.
And if you look carefully, there's a Larry Rice down there in the march.
Here's a clip that we're talking about right here. So
There she is.
Yeah.
wow, young looking. Wow.
You ain't kidding. We were all young looking then.
Right.
And all the media guys knew Pete.
Oh yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
There he is.
Yeah, and that Avalon Theater. That
Yeah.
I mean, that's something to look back on, and a lot of people remember going there.
Sure.
On Kings Highway near Chippewa
Right.
in the city.
We lived right down the street at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's so great about me watching it the last night doing my research. Like it was almost like a time capsule of
Yes.
St. Louis. It really
Yes.
was. Like he went to the Frontenac, and I'm like, "There's trailers in the Frontenac."
Yeah.
I was like, "Wow, okay." You know, there's just different places he went. Some places are still around, which is kind of amazing too.
He
And-
went to the arena.
yeah, the arena. Yeah, he was pissed off that they were going to wreck it and
Right,
what they were going
right.
to do with it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good episode. I watched that actually this morning.
And a lot of that was because of Linda, and her maiden name was Keel, so she had an affiliation with, I guess the people that originally started the. I don't know. Get Keel figures in there somewhere. I know there was a news story about it, and Pete's quote was something like, she's really obsessed with it. It's kind of annoying. But yeah, there were a couple of bits where she's like at the fence, like screaming, which I can say that about. There's like different eras of the show.
For sure.
Cast members come and go, probably because of some of those personality differences.
Yes.
But like the last third era of the show, I would say, was a lot about historical preservation and a lot of anger towards the city not taking care of things, letting buildings crumble, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. Like the first, because I can just tell by the way he looked. Like
Yeah.
during the earlier ones, it was more like, let's be kind of raunchy, let's kind of be shocking to the audience doing this thing. And then you're right, because there are later episodes where he looks a little grayer, that he was, we're talking about the arena, and he was going to different places trying to advocate for things.
They go to the park more. I think it was like the last day that it was open. There were other like random buildings that they would drive around to and point out. But yeah, there's a couple of good rants from Pete in that last third era where he's just going off. I have a couple of clips of those where they're like 10 minutes long, just driving around pointing out how we just let it all crumble. And a lot of those arguments still hold true today, obviously. And I see those clips shared out because of that. Like nothing's changed, and it's 30 plus years later.
Right. So did you guys, what era were you guys part of the show? All the way through to
Well,
All the way through.
Yeah.
Well, not the beginning, not the very
not
beginning.
the very beginning.
I guess in the late, I don't know, was it that first
Late
Tire
80s.
Grove Park show was
Which was,
in 87.
Okay.
and that was around like episode 20, I think,
Right.
something like that.
So how often would he pump out an episode? How often was an
He
episode?
tried to do an episode once a month.
Once a month.
And
Okay.
that, people don't realize how difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's
tremendous amount of work involved. And what he would do is then, because he didn't have time to do everything like he should have.
Right.
So then down the road, he would take two shows and combine them into one, cut 2 hours down to 1 hour. And it, tremendous improvement in the show. They probably should have been, they should be condensed even more.
Yeah.
But
Well, people don't realize, like, you're going from tape to tape, and so if you're recording, it's not like it's digitized and it renders out in 30 seconds. If it's 30 minutes of footage, it's going to take 30 minutes to dub
Right.
over. Like, it's exactly time for time kind of deal. Like,
oh, it was a big pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And of course, when he started out, he didn't know nothing about video, and it was self-taught kind of thing. And then you could tell, it got better and better. His first microphone was that $3 black microphone, but it worked.
Yeah.
it still sounds, I mean, for being a street mic, yeah, it sounds pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, he got a better one,
Yeah.
not too long after that. But
So what he passed away in 2002, and so the show ran to what night? You said 1995, or did I say that? That's what I read. So.
It ran to 2001.
Oh, it did.
Yeah, and I mean it probably was running through the time.
But the
was
last
on
show
some of
was
the-
99. Is that right?
Yeah, it was shot in 99.
Shot in 90,
but
okay.
but according to like the dates on the tapes,
Yeah.
he was still, handed out stuff that was already shot just
Mm-hmm.
to rerun episodes on all those cable networks. And even, I mean, just going through the tapes, and he has like Post-it notes, and some of them are just notes jotted on there, like air dates. And some of them go through the point of his death. So I don't know how far in advance he would take those to the cable stations. But yeah, I mean, there was no like actual stopping until he got sick, from what I could see, as far as airing the stuff and wanting to get it out there.
But so my question is, so he never sent these tapes, because the internet wasn't around then, so he never sent these tapes outside St. Louis? Because I feel like watching this stuff, there's a lot of things that I see that seems like it came at a later day. I was almost like, well, maybe he sent his tapes out and people used it as a think tank, and they were influenced by some of this stuff, because even like the worldwide logo looks like, real TV from MTV, what I'm saying, look like Real World from MTV, and that would obviously his would predate that show.
Right. Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that feels like, he was before Tom Green,
Right,
Jackass, Michael Moore, like the early Michael Moore walking around with a camera and a microphone talking to random people.
Yeah. He wasn't radio. Did he ever meet Howard Stern? Did he ever write?
No.
Because he had Fred Willard. I didn't know if he was from St. Louis. Fred Willard's a pretty popular actor. I don't know if he's still alive.
He passed away.
He did. Okay.
The Fred Willard part of it, that was the one time that Pete sent out footage outside of St. Louis.
Yeah, he had a cable show that Pete was on.
Access America. It ran for 2 years on... It was the network that became Comedy Central, I'm pretty sure.
Really? Okay.
And they basically just had people submit public access tapes.
Mm-hmm.
And so he would highlight clips of different shows. And there were finalists for the best public access show. And he would travel out and shoot an episode, meet the people. So that's what that was. He came to St. Louis for like a day.
Yeah, it was fun. It was really great.
Yeah.
It's a lot of neat footage. I was watching that last night. Yeah.
Yeah. So
he kind of freaked out on us, and I was doing a scene with him, and I pulled a frozen rabbit out of my pocket. He didn't know what to say. After it was over, he told me his pet rabbit had just died.
That's right.
But he seemed like he was game for whatever shenanigans was going on.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was really funny guy. Another genius, definitely.
Yeah, he seemed like he was good on camera.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Your question made me think of something else, though.
Sure.
I have heard from a lot of fans, even Emmett mentioned it, taking tapes with him to other cities to show friends and leaving that with them. I think one of the news stories I came across recently talked about, it might have been the Elaine Vietz piece that she mentions people happening upon parties watching Worldwide Magazine footage. It's like, well, they must have had nothing better to do. So, that's a great shirt.
I would pay money for
there's
it.
Fred right
I would
there.
pay, yeah. So
We were down on Cherokee with Fred, and dump truck Dave Perry was with us. He banged his head on a newspaper machine and was bleeding like a son of a bitch.
Yeah.
And Fred he was amazed. He couldn't believe it.
And at the end of that, he's like, well, it was nice to meet you, Dave.
how would that be? So you guys went down there, you guys filmed this, right? And so would you guys go out for beers afterwards? Would you go out for dinner? Like,
we'd usually go to Pete's house and we'd,
just watch the footage.
Yeah, we get high and laugh and
watch.
you know,
Okay.
Yeah.
And so okay.
And that's another thing. We always got to screen the shows before they were aired.
Uh-huh.
Pete would call us and say, "You want to come over and watch the show that's gonna be on.
There's Dave.
Yeah, look at Dave. That's when he could walk.
Oh, he was a wrestler, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, there's some good footage of him in his tight pink and black
Yeah, I wore that one time. In
wrestler
the show.
outfit where he's at Club Fetish.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was watching. That's funny. That's the last video I watched before you guys came on because I was looking for Mama Daisy chain, and so yeah, he was bleeding, but there's a fetish going. I don't know.
He's
I didn't really
crawling on the
understand what was going
ground.
on,
Oh
but
my God. I was the cameraman, and I'm telling you, some of the stuff I missed was amazing.
Yeah.
There was the dominatrix. It was whipping him.
Yeah.
which episode was that? I think there was.
It was in one of the.
Is it in the special here? Was it-
Yeah.
There
towards
we
the end
go.
That's
Yep.
where, and we got. That's the diminished wide angle. I don't know.
Yeah, there it is. Yep.
It's good for television. It's good for our show. So, but yeah,
There's a dominator. There you go.
Licking her leg.
So I don't know what's going on here, but I'm telling you, I stopped and watched because I was like, "What is this kind of deal?" And so I could just imagine flipping through your channels because there's not very many on your cable channel, and you come across this.
That's Dave. He's so, look at him. Look at, what an actor. What a great actor.
Wow. Oh, Jesus. So
Yeah, and the editing on this stuff, it's amazing. I mean, this had its own music to it, I think, from the club, but
And Dave's screaming the whole time.
yeah.
yeah, the because I do video editing as well. The pacing and just like to cut out the fat on certain like interviews and stuff. It was really good. Like,
Yeah.
and you're going from tape to tape. It's not like on a computer.
Yeah.
That's doing it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah. So tell us a little bit more about this night. So you guys were there.
I wasn't there. He was.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it was just one of the best shoots I ever went on. And Dave got up there, and one of the things I missed, there was a wooden platform, and he got on it, and he started dancing. I swear the whole room was vibrating, you know. I didn't get it on camera, but it was really great.
So you would call him up with ideas. Other people would call him. How would he research knowing, like, it seemed like it'd be a tough thing of like, I got to put a show on 2 hours this month. I got to, what the hell am I going to do? What's going on in the count? I mean, because it's not like you can go into Google and be like, well, what's going on in St. Louis this month? So you'd have to go through the newspapers, through the magazines.
No, he would just fly by the seat of his pants.
right.
And there were times when we filmed with him. We'd spend an afternoon, and he said, we would say to ours, at least I would. I said, what's he going to get out of this? I mean, there's nothing here.
Right. But
And he puts together his
We're saying-
show, and it turned
saying-
out just fine.
yeah.
A lot of people that were on the show, they would go through the thing, and then they would think nothing had happened, you know, and then they would see it, and they would be amazed, you know.
It's all in the editing and the music.
Yeah.
The music, and then I think just the street characters, the people that he would go approach, and even you guys, his people that were on the mic. It was just interesting people to watch.
Yeah.
And I think what makes me think of the people that would do things for the show and not watch the edited product until years later. And I heard from a couple of them, Vanessa the Songbird was one of them, that you think you're shooting one thing and she was happy with that, but then the edited product is what like sent her through the roof. I mean, it's not much like sending her through the roof. I mean, her voice sounds exactly the same, but she was very passionate about not liking how she was portrayed.
Did you get a lot of kickback on that? With, I guess a lot of people might sadly be gone. You know,
There's some people that are gone.
30 years ago.
There's been a couple of people that have asked me to pull things that had them in it, and
Really?
I have for periods of time, and then just pushed it back out there. You know, Vanessa was one.
I wouldn't worry about Vanessa.
No. It's been
nut.
Yeah, I talked to her probably about 10 years ago, and she didn't
All
ask.
Pete did for her, and she just resented him so much.
Yeah,
It
she
just
didn't like
pissed
the
me off,
childish
you know?
music that would play over her, and
Because nobody had ever heard of her if it hadn't been for Pete. You know?
Well, and she was discovered at the Elvis impersonator contest I found that fascinating when I came across it. I was like, this is when she was discovered. She was a contestant at the Elvis impersonator contest. Yeah. But she talks like this.
She was good on the show, you know, but it's just an aggravating kind
well,
of
I'm sure
person, you know.
once it got, it seemed like he had a huge peak boom in the like 87, 88 was like his probably, you know,
I would say the 90s.
90s was big. Well,
say.
so he probably got a lot of people, you know, giving their 2 cents of like, you know, you should do this.
Ruth and I, if we go to the store, or people would recognize us no matter where we would go. It was amazing, you know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then when the show was over, I mean, a month or two, and it was over.
Right.
All glory is fleeting.
Forgotten. Yeah.
Well, this just shows you how much, like, there wasn't, like we were talking earlier, it wasn't oversaturated, that there's 1,000 streaming things on there. There's, you know, people only had, like, a limited thing to watch, and this was interesting to watch. Like,
it was different.
Yeah. I mean, just like I was watching this earlier today, they just go on the bus and just... It was just interesting hearing the people talk of what they're going to go do for the day. I don't know, you know, it's just...
Yeah. Talking to the bus drivers.
Talking to the bus driver, right.
Yeah. And that's Marty there, and Marty's brother Mark was very passionate about bi-state and riding the bus.
Was that the pork and beans guy?
Marty's the pork and beans guy,
Yeah.
Is he still around?
He is.
Okay.
He is.
Yeah.
And he's one that's... he's shied away from talking about any of this. I can tell Marty still hovers over the page though, because I've caught him liking a few things, and
Good. He's a very unusual guy.
Yeah. I think people like it's a time in their life, and some people change drastically from that time and don't want to think about it. Sometimes that involves religion. I've heard that story a few times. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's kind of, I guess, embarrassing to them. I can kind of understand that. But also, I mean, think of it as a time in your life.
Well, right. I mean, you put it out on the internet, it's going to be, you know, it's like, well, even just out there in the world or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
I wish it was the case. I wish there was 1 million views on some of the shows. But
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Disappointing.
I watched this, and, you know, it was just before its time. It really was, because if it would have hit, like, 2000s when YouTube was, like, you know, popping up, this would have been huge.
Yeah.
This would have been huge.
And every once in a while, something will go, not viral, but I'll see some peaks in the views around the time of the Keishi guy, the Party Boys. And that's from the episode that aired on Channel 11. There was one episode that aired on Channel 11.
It's a great episode.
What St. Louis means to me.
What year would that have been?
93, I think. So yeah, and that was something that I was looking for a while, because a couple of people had asked me about basically the crossroads of the world portion of it. Yeah, and that still is one of the most popular clips.
Yeah, that was a good
on
show.
YouTube, on Facebook.
And by that time, when he had done that show, he was good at editing and doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
And you know,
and what's funny is I'll find like kind of like alternate versions of those where he tried to do the same thing 2 episodes before with Kathy, and it's not as catchy. But it's the people you encounter. It's the approach to it. Where
there's a lot
go.
of serendipity involved with Pete's style.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
Yeah, he was charismatic on camera, like just with his interviews, and it seemed like he disarmed a lot of people, even though he was asking kind of like those types of questions. It just seems people opened up to him a lot. Like he seemed, you know, kind of warm to people when he would do these interviews, like
in his way.
In his way, right? And I'm just talking. Look, I'm talking on my ass because I've only watched like probably 6 hours of this stuff, and there's obviously probably 30, 40 hours. Maybe even how many episodes is it?
Over 220.
Okay, over 220 hours that I don't know what I'm talking about. So yeah.
Yeah. And this is a good clip. The original restaurant. This was. See, stuff like this, like people post a lot of historical St. Louis things on Facebook, or they'll ask like, "Does anyone remember this or that?" And hell, I can go back to a Worldwide Magazine episode and post a clip for them, thinking that there was never video footage of this place, you know. And
Did Pete get food poisoning there?
No, that was me.
Oh, that was you.
What was it?
I don't know.
No, you can just his storytelling, the framing, everything.
Yeah,
you know, got better.
and that's Steve Bailey there.
Yeah.
So
He was good.
Yeah.
So what was Pete's dream? Because it seemed like you said Channel 11 93. It's like he seemed like he was always trying to get there, but it seemed like they were kind of always putting up a barrier for him to put his stuff on. Like
I mean,
did he try to?
The goal eventually was to make money, because you get a lot of that in interview clips with him. A lot of bitterness, and I mean, he's not super pissed off,
right?
But you can tell, I don't make any money from this, you know, and he spent so much time doing it.
But you got to remember with Pete, the guy was a genius, okay, and you could tell when you worked with him. But then he would do things that aggravate you, no matter who you were.
Yeah, yeah.
And like at Double Helix, they got into him for a while, and the people there were wanting to help him, and then he got to fucking with him. Well, they wouldn't do with him after that, you know. And he was like that with everybody.
They're not going to do him any
Everybody
favors.
he ever fooled with, at one point he pissed him off, and I was really, I thought he could never piss me off, but before he died, he managed to really piss me off, and he did it to everybody. So I got my one time too, you know.
So you're saying Double Helix, and so what do you think his ultimate goal was? Obviously to make money, but do you think he was trying to? Would he want it to be a national show? I mean, was he?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And I don't know if he ever had a plan for that, except get enough exposure that initially or eventually it would take him to that stage.
That's what he always thought at some point. It would just take
Just
off.
get discovered.
I think, as I have a lot of artists come on the show, and you have a creative person that's really creative, but they don't have the business sense. Like there's a different type of brain for business that likes to make the green, and then you got the creative side. And I think I'm in Pete's boat that like I do this, I make no money doing it, but I love doing it.
Yeah.
It costs me money buying all this shit.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to stop because it's just fun. It's like and that seemed like kind of like what it was for him.
yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
for sure. And he, the fact that it was like kind of different eras looking at it now, and just the nature of the show kind of changed through the years, but it was his platform. He could do whatever the hell he wanted for the most part.
Right. Driving in a cab seemed like you didn't have a boss. He's probably didn't like the man kind of deal, and that's probably what you're talking about. These problems where he'd go to these stations. Well, he started having like limitations and kind of have to answer to somebody.
Well, it didn't have to be authority figures.
Right.
Anybody.
Oh, that was okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was.
But yeah, he was able to have these little rants about things. The man, basically. I mean,
What do you call those rants?
one man's opinion.
Yeah,
he had
there it
those.
is.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
he had one man's opinion, which was, I mean, they were funny, quick.
And the thing was, all
Opinions.
those earlier shows, the first 10 or so, he did that in every show.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
you start off with the violin,
The one man's opinion. Yeah.
And I guess, were you able to find any of those, like 2 through 9? And
No,
and I had asked Pete when I first got on there. I said, can I get copies of those? And he goes, well, what do you want those for? Those are old. So I'm thinking they don't even.
I mean, I
exist.
figure
probably
some
don't.
of that stuff that he liked was inserted in some of the best of stuff later on. But it was easy for him to cut one of his episodes in half and edit it and post it later with
He
another
had to
one.
edit long because he was making a show every month.
Yeah.
It just
And it was
was
an
so
hour
hard.
long.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a lot. People don't realize
no
how much work that
commercials.
is.
I mean, we're not even in an hour now. We're in 44 minutes of the show right now. So
Yeah.
yeah. So
But when you're making a show like that, that's
Right.
a tremendous amount of work.
especially what we're saying, no.
Shooting it, that's a tremendous amount, and then editing it.
Well, that's another thing too. You're talking cost too, like the cost of tape. Think of all that tape for all that raw footage. That just the cost
he was
of it.
getting a lot of tape from
Channel
KPLR
11,
once he
yeah.
worked there, just recording over stuff basically.
And I'm sure the engineers down there, or the guys that worked on the machines, worked on his too, because there's no way he could afford to.
Yeah.
Oh, those machines were ridiculous. I couldn't even pick it up, and I'm strong. I couldn't pick that goddamn thing up. It was so heavy.
Store already worked overnight, so overnight he probably didn't have much eyes on him. They probably did whatever he needed to while he was working, watching over stuff. I mean, you know.
Oh, I got to tell you, when he was working at Channel 11, he's edited tapes there. And, okay, one night there was was it a ball game? Hockey game.
Playoff game.
So everybody was on Channel 11 waiting for the hockey game. Well, I had done a thing at my house when I had
Uncle Nunzio,
and I had a platter with a deer head in the middle of the platter and rabbit heads all around the deer head.
Yeah.
And then Angelo comes in and
there's a towel over it.
Yeah. And then on Channel 11, all of a sudden, here's Angelo and the deer heads and the rabbit heads. And I thought for sure he'd get fired over that.
He stuck it on air like that.
He did it by accident.
Yeah.
Oh, by accident, because he was editing
Yes,
tapes and reusing
Trying
tapes.
to do two things at one time.
It was hilarious, but I thought for sure he'd get fired. But I don't think they ever said anything to him about it.
Oh wow,
Not a word.
that's funny. That's funny. What was the last time when you guys spoke to him? Was right? I mean, was it last episode or was it?
I spoke to him.
We spoke to him when he was in Florida, didn't we?
Yeah. Right.
So he moved to Florida with
with his mother.
Wow.
He was
Sister
moved
flew
to
him
Florida
down.
essentially, right?
Well, yeah, when he was sick.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because he was in and out of a coma for the last. Was it over? It was over a month, right? Yeah.
Wow.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So, okay. So that was the last time. Any other great stories you guys have? Just you can share with the audience here. I love stories, man. I love.
Well, there was this one Christmas episode. And like I say, we would go over. We would go over and watch the shows beforehand. And there was this one part where Watt Davis is down at the St. Louis Center interviewing what looked like a homeless guy.
Oh yeah.
And one of the things he said, this is Watt
There's
interviewing.
Watt at the top there.
And Watt says,
right there, yeah.
back in tribal Africa, one of our tribal customs was to make mud pies out of human excrement and exchange them. Remember that?
No.
So then, years later, I'm transferring the tape, or I'm watching one of Jim's tapes, and that's not in there. I said, I guess Jim edited it out. So I went back and looked at the tape, and sure enough, it wasn't in the tape either. So that was one of the things Pete was real squeamish about it when he was showing it to us. We were roaring with laughter.
Yeah.
Right.
But
And maybe that made it into another cut of that tape too.
I think he took it out.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's one thing that I've found interesting is
Oh, this is hilarious too.
and I think this was the first
It's the St.
Christmas parade downtown.
I know they had a Christmas parade. This is all new to me.
Yeah. I know that they were at the first Christmas parade, and I think this was it. Because there's a few of those episodes at Christmas time when they're downtown talking to people. At St. Louis Center, that's another place that you see in some of those early
Look at that
episodes.
hair and those coats and those clothes and
I mean, the weird...
look at that camera right there. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's probably how big, I mean, to catch up, but how big was the camera that you guys had to carry around? It had to be, it wasn't like,
originally
it wasn't like this. They weren't like, hey, they were like,
originally it was a camera and then a recording device.
Yeah.
connected to it. Oh, what a pain in the ass.
And you can tell, like if you moved a thing, the video signal would jumble,
Mm-hmm.
So it was like...
It was primitive times.
Right.
and you were saying, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Well, St. Louis Center is shown in a lot of the earlier episodes. So a lot of people will dig those episodes up and post them as well. There's kind of an appreciation for the early days of that place.
That reminds me when he went to St. Louis Center and he goes walking in. And there's these black guys, and they're screaming and hollering, and they're getting.
That's another. That's another clip that has gone semi-viral.
Just when he walked in, everything happened.
Oh, they recognized him. Yeah.
And
No, they didn't recognize him.
No, they were getting kicked out, so they were causing a ruckus.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Gotcha,
Oh, it was great.
So he wanted to talk to them after they were kicked out outside, and they're like, "Oh, we're on TV," and they start rapping and stuff. But yeah, the fun thing about that is, it is shared across the spectrum of people that love that episode, and even guys that were in that clip have found it.
Oh, really?
And come out in the comments, or people will tag them, and they're like, "Oh crap, I remember that." It's great. Well, and I remember people contacting me about seeing themselves in one of these.
Well, I'm looking for my 8-year-old self right here. I'm looking at the audience. I'm trying to find my 8-year-old
It's
self.
so funny how like people can discover a 1-second clip of themselves and they love it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is funny to just find yourself buried in one of these episodes.
And back then to be on TV was just so amazing.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Anybody could shoot a video now and put it on YouTube, but back then it was just like
How was like just everyone's ego? It seemed like Pete. I mean, this is like I said, 6 hours of watching, folks. He put other people on in front of the camera. Like it wasn't always him with the mic. Obviously, he was the glue that glued the show together.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
it seemed like he, was very, opening up the doors to other people to be on camera.
well, this will make it easier for him too.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so.
It's so much work,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
amazing.
Less pressure to be Mr. Entertainment.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to talk about the music because I saw that gypsy music that I posted yesterday.
Yeah. Let me go back to your.
Imagining him sitting there editing these tapes, and that's quite a feat in itself. But the fact that he's layering this music over it, and this is all on vinyl, that
Right.
he's got this huge shelf of vinyl, I guess, and he's
His
grabbing
whole basement
stuff
was
off
full of
there. and-
records.
Yeah. But along with his editing, finding the right soundtrack for a lot of this stuff is just amazing.
He'd be in there smoking joints and smoking cigarettes and editing and just, and
He
it
could
was,
do it so fast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was just
yeah.
really artistic and he was really talented,
Yeah, and it wasn't stuff that
He could see what to do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it would be great,
Yeah, he had it all in his head ahead of time.
So the music, it was the original music, right? So there's a
No, I
Okay.
mean, well, there's a very small bit
Okay,
of original
okay.
music, and that's why a lot of this is hard to get out there now because there's copyrights on so much of this stuff. But yeah, he was just pulling records off a lot of like early jazz. You'll
Very
see in
unusual
this.
stuff.
this was on there. I can cut to this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can hear it now. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can see it in the show.
A lot of like music that you could imagine being scored over like early cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I can see that too. Yeah.
Yeah, like jazz orchestral type stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
He was really good at picking music for sure. That was his.
yeah, and I mean,
Big talents.
you pretty much have two themes to the show through the years: China Boy by Red Nichols and his Five Pennies, right?
Right.
And then Tiger Rag by Fletcher Henderson and his orchestra. And there's a lot of Fletcher Henderson in there too. So yeah, this stuff that like people haven't really heard of. You don't hear people talking a lot about Fletcher Henderson,
Right.
but he would find this stuff and
Did he, obviously he's wasn't going to get flagged probably back then in the 80s, 90s because like you would put if you put it on YouTube right now they're gonna know because but did he have releases signed to these people when you go
hell
in?
no.
So he was yeah, but did he know the law? Like okay, if I stand on the public street here, they can't do anything. Was he?
He didn't care about the law.
Did he ever have the law? Did he ever have the police bother him?
Oh,
and
many
Oh,
they-
police
times.
loved him.
Oh.
And
Police
that's-
loved Pete.
But he was hassled.
And that's another thing
when
that
they
came
re-
up in the media coverage through the years as well, is like when he would go to the VP Fair and the Park Service.
Kicked him out.
Yeah, they kicked him out several times. There's some
For
compilations
filming,
of that.
for shooting video.
Yeah, because it wasn't for home video purposes. It was commercial video,
Well, it really wasn't commercial.
Right. Well, and that was his argument.
Right. The ACLU got involved, and it was on the channel, the news.
Yeah, it was on a couple of news stations.
It was a big deal at the time.
Yeah, there's several news articles about it, and even in the Gateway Arch National Park archives, if you go to their website, somewhere in there, it shows that in their archives is an episode of Worldwide Magazine.
Oh, wow.
Just in a listing. It's not something you can watch there, but
we were talking about the police. Whenever we talk about the police, I always remember the time Pete was slapping Linda around one time. She called the police on him, and the police loved Pete. They came to his house and they, "Hey Pete, how you doing?" And of course Linda was all pissed off, and Pete always had on the table back there, he had a mason jar full of weed, and of course it was illegal back then. And,
Right.
And so she, look here, he's got weed. He's got a whole jar of weed. And the cops come back there and they picked it up and they look at Pete. They go, "Well, that looks like some good shit, Pete." She was so mad. They didn't do anything. They were just glad to meet him.
Right. So he was pretty. I mean, when you would go places, you said you got recognized. I mean, he
absolutely.
was pretty well known.
Angelo's the one that never got recognized because he was always in costume.
With me.
Oh, you were always in. Okay.
well, yeah, you're a working man during the day. You don't want to be recognized.
People at work
Yeah.
would watch Worldwide Magazine, and they never knew Angelo was those characters. People that worked with him every day.
There was a number of people that watched the show
Yeah.
that didn't know I was in it. They couldn't believe that it was me.
Name all of your characters that you played with some.
Well,
Hung Way Low and Uncle Nunzio were the main ones.
I did Rod Serling on a
Oh
Yeah.
that
There's
was
like a
good.
first Hoosier movie.
Twilight Zone
On the Hoosier
type
one?
Hoosier
Yeah,
Winter episode.
I'm
yeah.
gonna pull that episode up here. So, you never got recognized till
No,
okay.
that was by
But we
design.
got me that the people that knew him, and they would watch the show, and they still didn't know it was him.
Yeah.
Like,
Stinky.
See, which ones are you guys? I'm sorry.
So Big Mike is wearing the hat in the back there.
no, that's
Yeah, that's me and Stinky.
Stinky's on
Oh,
the
yeah.
left.
That's you right here.
No, on the right.
Oh,
that's Gizmo the cat.
On the right there with the hat.
And Stinky did this crazy character, and he, like every time somebody
Right.
would going to be
there-
executed.
There's Angelo, yeah.
Yeah, there's Rod Serling.
wow.
Yeah, every time
Submitted.
somebody was going to be
Just a
executed,
young guy there.
He would be on television talking about it. And then he would play that crazy character. It was really weird.
And that's
I can see him being excited about this episode. Doing it in black and white. It's kind of like a fun. Yeah.
That's kind of a takeoff of the Honeymooners was
Right.
always
Yeah.
done in black and white.
It was in black and white, so we did some of the Hoosier Mooner episodes in black and white.
Right.
Yeah. It was a good episode. I was down at Kmart playing my saxophone, and they come and kicked us out. And it's always fun when you get kicked out.
yeah, and there's a lot of those
Oh yeah.
clips and episodes out there of just getting kicked out of various places.
And at the end of every episode, "Ruth, baby, you're the greatest," just like on the Honeymooners,
Cue the music.
Yeah, right. And that was the fireworks and everything. That's the same thing they did on the Hoosier Mooners.
Oh,
Honeymooners,
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry, the Honeymooners.
The honeymooners.
Yes.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Look how young Angelo is.
Yeah. Well, it's
And
been-
that's something I like to touch on when we have our events too, is like, this is something that they were just playing around doing back in the day. It's like their home movies in a way too.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
Right.
footage of you guys back then.
Yeah. My old Cadillac.
Yeah, I was watching some of your Q&As, and I mean, you had a full theater of people. I mean, there's a lot of love
Yeah.
still, and people still remember
We did
the
a thing
show.
at Broadway Athletic Club, and that
Yeah.
was full.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
believe it.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
that,
about
that
150 people
Arcadian
then.
was a small thing, but
Yeah.
there was a lot of people at Broadway.
Yep. And the fun thing with those events is you get an even mix of people that watched it back in the day. So you get your
It's 50-50.
older crowd, and then you get the folks that never knew about it
weren't
until
born.
YouTube. Yeah, they weren't even born. Yeah. And you have some people that are just dragged along that haven't even watched it.
It amazes me how into it some of those people are. They're
Yeah.
really into it.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And we talked about how, just being in an environment with 50 people, watching them laugh at parts of it that,
Yeah, it's very
to see what they appreciate is
very
very
entertaining.
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, just look at that right here. You can see.
Oh, there we are. Yeah,
Yeah. So
Yeah, so we have little reunions and
Candy Buns is even there.
and so the younger audience, talk about that because that's kind
Miss
of I thought
Kathy.
that was kind of interesting. What did the I don't know what generation Z or X or whatever it is now. What was the kids like in their 20s and teens think of this show when they see it? Like the TikTok age people. I mean, what do they think of this stuff?
we've had some people try to make TikTok channels of this, but it's been pulled pretty quickly because
Really?
of content.
Really?
Yeah. The main one I was thinking of, it was pulled because of Black Jesus talking about crack. So
Guess what?
let me tell you, Peter.
Well, I know that guy was. Yeah, he was a shining star for that show. Yeah.
See now, and Black Jesus is still around.
Right.
We were at Black Jesus' house one time, and the people down the street, it was a crack house, you know, and we damn near got shot. They were mad because we were out there videotaping, you know. They didn't like it.
Yeah, it just seemed like he would find interesting people, like I don't know who this guy is, but
Tom Horner of the Horner Brothers.
But
Now,
like,
so
let's
this-
just film this guy because
So this actually was my first interaction with Pete. I shot this footage going to the 1997 picnic.
how old were you there? Were you 20s then?
Oh, no. High school age.
High school age,
So
okay.
like 16, 17.
Was that when they rolled him down the?
Yeah.
They rolled him down the hill in a barrel.
Yeah.
Oh, this is like before Jackass. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
that's what I'm saying. I see the show and I'm like, that's kind of like Jackass. That's kind of like Man on the Streets. That's kind of like
he was ahead of
Jaywalking.
his
That's
time.
kind of like
Yeah.
the real world. I'm like, somebody like either, no, we can't let you in, Pete. But here, let me look at these tapes you got here. okay, let me write that down. Like, it just seemed like it was very.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people see that now looking back, and
It's like a guy
there's
that
an
didn't-
appreciation for
did
that.
not get his break. That it was just, you had this
Right.
creative guy that.
Right. And there's lots of people like that. There's all kinds of
sadly
people.
there is.
Yeah.
Sadly-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So at least we have the archive.
And since we're looking
There
at
is
Tom
that.
Horner, I got to tell you, when, he was a big drunk and his family and his brother, they was all drunks, and that's why they were on the show and everything. Well,
Yeah.
he was in his house. What was that street he lived on by River de Pere? And
Winona or
I-
Oletha?
one of them.
around there,
Anyway,
yeah.
But anyway, he was sitting in a recliner and drunk as hell, smoking a cigarette, caught the house on fire. And then his chair burned and it went through the floor and he wound up in the basement, burned up in that chair,
And that's how he died. And actually there's 2 episodes dedicated to Tom Horner that were shot at the funeral home, just cutting away the clips of him. And then in the second episode of that, they go to his burnt out house and say, this is not a joke. We've joked around about people dying in the past. Because there's an episode about Dave Perry dying in which he didn't really die. But yeah, they're shining flashlights on his burnt out house. It's crazy. I mean, it's sad, but it kind of falls along the same lines as the rest of the show. Just bizarre stuff that.
It was almost like I was thinking now while you're talking. It was like almost like influenced by like Andy Kaufman because I was watching one that was like you guys were outside the 7-Eleven and the guy came and acted like he was from 7-Eleven, but then you realize that the guy's not really from 7-Eleven. He's really one of Pete's.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's part of like the whole show or whatever.
Yeah, Steve Bailey did that in
Yeah.
Dupo too, or well, he had another guy come in with him that acted on board. Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's interesting to see what they did at different times for the show, what they got away with, but also, how Pete, I mean, I guess evolved in a way, but just how things changed through the years. It's very fascinating.
What do you think if he would think of today if Pete was still around? I'll ask you guys this question with the TikTok and the way people are with their phones. Everybody's taping everybody now. Like, you know,
I think he'd be a star if he was around today. You know, because he just
what he would think of what we've done or what
no,
Jim's done,
just
or...
how society is that now. Like everybody's like, oh, look at my meal here. I'm a, you know, oh look, I'm, you know, doing all this stuff. They're, you know, everybody's like films everything now. And but I thought was fascinating about the show is because nobody else was out there with a camera but him. So like people were really excited, you know. Or maybe they didn't like him with the camera or whatever, but it's just people are different now with cameras than they were back then.
I was remember we'd be at bus stops and we'd be shooting guys, and there'd always be some guys there that were wanted. Don't take my picture.
All I know is it's a lot easier to put something together now than it was back then.
Right.
When he would edit, we would go over there, like I said, and he'd be smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee, and it just long process, and he'd be talking to us and doing it at the same time, which is kind of interesting.
And you wouldn't have to completely recut an episode from scratch either if you had to.
Well, me when
digital,
I edit, I was
pull
trying to
things
concentrate.
out.
You know, shit, Pete could he be talking to you know he could do two things at once. You know,
well, that's the thing too is you had back then you had to put a lot of thought into it because you're putting all this hours and work into what's going to go out. Today they just tape, upload, done. Like they don't put any thought process in what they're putting out, the content. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, there's the freedom aspect of it as far as putting out whatever you want and the almost immediacy of it. Right now we're live. So yeah, he could do things like that. I think the downside of it is, could he get away with everything that he was doing back then? No.
Like I said, somebody probably killed him by now.
Yeah. And would he be able to restrain himself in that kind of situation? I don't know.
Doubt it.
Yeah. So I think about that too. There's pros and cons to it. Because some people say he would absolutely thrive, and I'm like, I don't know for sure. I mean, there's parts of it that I'm like, oh yeah.
You look at you look at Howard Stern now, and Howard Stern back in the 80s. I mean,
he's nothing like he was in the 80s.
No.
Right.
He tries to make
but he's still successful, and he's learned how to kind of change with the times. So yeah,
I just think that if that guy he just didn't get the right break, that's what I see.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's a lot like life, you know.
Right. Lots of people like that.
It's true.
And he recognized that at times, especially like in the last 5 years or so. There's a couple of newspaper articles that he pretty much calls that out. Talks about not feeling appreciated enough.
Yeah. We have a lot of artists that come on, and I'm not trying to dog St. Louis, but you think if he was in a different city, maybe
possibly
West Coast, East Coast kind of deal, that maybe that would have been, I mean, shit, if he was doing this show in LA probably in the 80s, they probably would have made a movie out of it probably, I would think.
Yeah. I kind of wonder how, like, Tom Green was discovered because he had a public access show
that's right.
in Canada.
It was Canada, right.
And somehow MTV discovered him, you know. So
a lot of luck involved, you know.
Right, exactly. It's very random. So, if he was still around, you know, even like 5 more years, who knows what could have happened. So
it's always like that. You know, I was at a karaoke club last night, and some of those singers, oh my God, you know, but they just don't get exposure and they don't get a break. And, you know, that's just the way life is, you know. Right. You got to be lucky to hit it big, you know.
Right place at right time kind of deal, right? Yeah. Wow. Well, guys, we did it. We did an hour talking about Worldwide Magazine. I appreciate you guys coming on. It was great talking with you guys.
It was fun.
Let me know when is there going to be another Q&A kind of thing like this coming? I'd like to. I help you host one. I mean, I don't have to get up there on camera, but I'm saying like with our network, we'd love to kind of step a spot where you guys could do this.
Yeah. Nothing's slated yet. I had a couple of proposed dates out there, so still waiting to hear back.
At the same place, or
at the same place. I did actually talk to the Stellar Hog, which is in the place of Dino's Bungalow.
Oh,
there were a lot of 80s episodes at Dino's Bungalow, and I thought it would be neat to have something there.
Yeah,
but basically we'd have to bring our own equipment to project it and everything.
Well, you're a filmmaker. Do you ever think of doing like a tribute show that you go out on the streets, maybe take these guys and kind of do like a reunion show with you know what I'm saying?
You
like,
could do that,
it'd
but
be
you couldn't recreate it. 'Cause
yeah.
without Pete, you couldn't.
A lot of places are gone.
Yeah.
I do want to find Ray Middleton. I'll call him out by name. He's the guy at the crossroads of the world that everyone makes memes of. His face.
Oh yeah.
I growed up here.
Yeah, I growed up here because he's still around the area, and it would be cool to even get him back to that intersection. That would be great.
I just think it'd be neat to take the camera and try some of the old bits.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And modern day, I don't know.
And there's some people that won't come out to these events that are still around, and it'd be good to get some like 10, 20-minute interviews with them as well. Go to their house, you know, even just to get it documented to add to this.
So many weird people were on that show.
Yeah.
I know that's I'd love to be
I think
involved.
of Gus and Jimmy. They're still around.
Oh yeah,
From
yeah.
Gus's Fashions downtown.
yeah. It's all good.
Always reminded me of kind of a world Mad Magazine kind of situation.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So, yeah. There's plenty of opportunity there to at least document these people while they're still with us. Not to be too morbid, guys.
Well, we're all going to be gone pretty soon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the fans at the last get together said something that was kind of touching like that. Just like, we really need to take advantage of this while we still have these people around, and get as much of this digitized as possible. So that's the plan.
Yeah, to go back on what I was saying earlier, I think if I don't know Pete, but if obviously, but I could see him having his podcast like this, doing a podcast the way he was with this.
Yeah, he had a radio show several times.
Yeah,
even
I
after he was
bet
on
you
the
he
air.
got into the podcast game. Yeah, I bet you would have. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, so subscribe to this page. Any other page? You know, you got the
The Pete
Facebook.
Parisi Archives YouTube page as well.
Okay.
You could visit on the web, peparchives.com. That has a listing of all the videos that are digitized out there right now. PEP.
Oh, spell one more time. Pete. I spelled Pete like that.
No, Peter E. Parisi, so PEP. No.
Well, I'll put it down there.
Yeah,
I'll put it
that's all
in the
right,
thing. I was trying to be cool and have it
Yeah,
pop
that's
up
all
for
right,
the
all right.
audience, but here I subscribe to this page here, so definitely.
Cool. Yeah.
so-
And there's another YouTube page of the Pete Parisi Archives, and that's the only stuff I put on there is from the masters that were delivered to me in 2020. So
Oh, here's the
new
other
stuff goes out there
Here's the other one.
somewhat
here, so-
regularly. Yep.
So there you go. So cool. Anything else we want to say before we get off air here?
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you guys for coming.
I'm kind of hungry. Do you get any like real hot nacho chips? You know?
I do.
Oh, yeah.
I do. We did the hot thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or cicadas, anything.
Yeah. I'm sure you guys researched the show there.
I don't think I want any.
We got some blow up dolls. Yeah. So
Oh, now you're talking.
we definitely like the raunchy comedy here for what I do. Other than this is like the normal talk show during the day, but at night we do funny.
Now Pete would have definitely have shot that.
Oh yeah.
You know, sticking a hot chip up your ass, isn't that kind of like cutting to the chase? You know, instead of eating it and then.
We're trying to catch something viral, so yeah. So that's. I'm glad you guys watched that footage and you still decided to come on the show. I didn't. Sometimes people see that footage and they're like, "Oh,
Yeah, but we're used to Pete.
Yeah.
See,
Well, you figured you cleaned the diarrhea
you're
off
lucky.
the wall already.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And well, like I said, the last show, I think Pete had he wouldn't let and just anybody on the show. There was like two criteria. You had to meet either one.
Right.
One, you had to have some kind of talent or play a musical instrument, or two, you had to just be plain weird and strange.
those are the best guests.
I fit into the second category.
Yeah.
No guitar or nothing. So.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching the Daily Dirt with Dustin Diggs. Check out the artistunitednetwork.com, and we will see you guys again tomorrow for Girls Night Out season premiere. We're out.
Artistunitednetwork.
Dustin Diggs.